Transparency. It's one of the most difficult things I think any sports organization or sanctioning body can really put out there. Because if you're too transparent, well, then you're letting too many trade secrets go, and you're probably doing a lot of things wrong. If you're not transparent enough, fans, I think, will rightfully say that you're not listening or not caring. And to NASCAR's credit, I think they have been pretty transparent in the last couple of years, even if it's not necessarily what we like, or maybe not even be right. Whether it be throwing Elton Sawyer into the lion's den to be mauled by the media and fans alike, or for the Steves to have a State of the Sport address and actually address a few things, even again, if it does seem kind of tone deaf, I give them credit. And Steve O'Donnell this week jumped on the brand new NASCAR podcast, Hauler Talk, which really just dives into the officiating side of NASCAR, which is a blind spot in the podcast space. I will give them that. So good on NASCAR for jumping on that. And they talked about a lot of different stuff, the OEP and playoffs, everything around the rotation of a finale, all of it. And I really want to focus on the meat of what was talked about, the playoffs and the rotation, because I think that Steve O'Donnell, while maybe saying some stuff we do know, did at least go a little more in depth in ways that I think we can actually glean some stuff from it. So let's jump into it. But right before we do, I just want to remind you, tonight we will be on Eric Estepp's channel for NWP. It'll be right after Daytona 500 qualifying, so be sure to jump on in. We're going to have a ton of fun. We'll be taking questions from the chat as well as talking everything Speed Week. So now let's jump on into it.
Yeah, I think it's important to probably go back and look at how we got to where we are today. And one of the cool things when you looked at stages, and I know some people, they don't like stages, or they don't like how we do the playoffs, but it was truly an industry-wide group that came together and talked about how we could do some things. And could we improve upon the racing so that every lap mattered? And when I look at kind of the original goal that we set out, I think it's hit on just about all of those. And, every lap does matter. Drivers are out there wheel to wheel, during stage breaks, playoffs, playoff races, cutoff races matter. So all those things have worked. But now you got to look at it and say, what could you do better?
So the obvious question I think that a lot of people ask after hearing that is, if it all worked, why change? Yes, we can kind of mask it by saying that we're trying to improve or be better. Obviously, you can't be perfect, so there are definitely blind spots no matter what the format or what the racing is like, but that is the big part of it there. And I think personally that it's not working, because the big goal in all of this, whether it be NASCAR or television making the call, is for more people to watch. And ultimately, not enough people watched.
And then the bigger thing is just the overall format of rewarding drivers, rewarding the best. The best may not always win in totality if you have a playoff, and I think that's a little bit different, for us versus maybe other forms of motorsports. And I think we've got to look at how we reward the overall champion to make sure that we can all feel like, yeah, legit champion. We're all behind it. I still stand by Joey Logano as a three-time champion, but we want to take a look at how we can balance that so that the Kyle Larsons of the world feel like this is a place I want to race for the rest of my career, because if I'm up on the wheel and I'm winning, I'm going to be rewarded for that.
This I find very interesting, because Steve O'Donnell said the word rewarding the best, the legit champion, all of that. And of course, Joey Logano won under the format that was placed at the start of the season under the rules, and for that he is a season champion. But I think that in that, you kind of see that underhanded back serve with it, where it's like, yeah, he won the championship. But were the rules really legit? Were the best drivers really rewarded at the end of the year? And I think it's interesting that he brought up Kyle Larson with that for a different reason I'll get to in a moment. But when it comes to the chase or the playoffs, any of that, he has brought up that, yes, the best overall will probably not be the one rewarded most often when it comes to a playoff. And that's something I think a lot of us should expect. We should not expect to go back to a Latford style system or just the full season points with stages added in and all of that. That's not going to happen in the near future by any means. But any kind of chase or playoffs, that is something to look at definitely. And I think that hearing somebody as high up as Steve O'Donnell talk about a legit champion or a legit format or any of that stuff is something that is so different from what NASCAR has put out there for so long. Now, obviously, he's going to have it sanitized. He's not going to go out there and say, this system sucks and we need to change it, because there are plenty of fans just like that don't like it that really do like it. But I will say that this is not something we would see during the Brian France era. This is not something I think we would ever see a member of the France family say, at least none of the France family over the age of, say, 35. I think this is something that should be highlighted, because for NASCAR, that is a huge step. That does at least acknowledge that they see the criticisms, which, listen, they've been so bad at that in the past. That is a big thing. On the Kyle Larson front, I think that's interesting, because there's always been little rumblings around the industry that Kyle Larson is not going to last as long as a majority of NASCAR careers for superstars, because he loves doing dirt racing, because he loves challenging himself with different forms of racing. And I think that that is something that NASCAR has to realize, because Kyle Larson is probably the closest thing to a racing superstar that we have now. A superstar similar to that of Tony Stewart, who would just jump into anything and can really move the needle with die-hard fans. You saw what happened with Kyle Larson when he did the double last year, well, at least attempted it, I should say. You've seen when he started making those comments about Max Verstappen. It really took off. So that's something important to look at for not only just Kyle Larson himself, but drivers like Kyle Larson, like a Connor Zilisch coming up, like any that might come up in the next few decades like that. You want to be able to keep those highly talented drivers there, because they make the sport better, both on the track with how they race and off the track with the people they bring.
And the last thing, Mike, I'd say is where we race. So not lost on me, and it's more complicated, I think, than just, waving a quick checkered flag, say, let's move the championship. But I do think a rotation is going to be really important for us. It has not happened yet. But again, I'll go use Nate as an example again. If he's won 45 Phoenix races in a row and the championship's there, probably not a good look for the sport, right? And we've had good mixture there, which has been great, which maybe says that Phoenix is a good racetrack. But I think a rotation is what the fans would like. I think, again, I go back to being a big fan of sports, right? College football, NFL, that rotation, the anticipation of a new venue. I think you'll see that with NASCAR as well.
A NASCAR championship rotation is something that ever since leaving Homestead, and probably a little bit before then for a lot of people, but especially since leaving for Phoenix, many fans have asked for. And I think that this is something that NASCAR is really wanting to do, because one, it does really kind of spread around the marketability of the sport. Whether one year you're doing it in Homestead, or you go back to Phoenix, or you maybe do Kansas. I know at one point during this podcast, O'Donnell said that it doesn't have to be an 80-degree summer feeling day for the finale to be there. It can be anywhere, because fans have proven they will show up anywhere. So let's make Kansas happen, because it has the best damn racing in the NASCAR Cup Series. And you could have it maybe not even at all the ISC tracks if it works well. Maybe have a fee that SMI pays to have it at Charlotte, or to have it at Las Vegas. A lot of people have always talked about a dream of Bruton Smiths. Have it all over the place. And he compares it to college football and the NFL with the Super Bowl and all of that. But I don't really like that comparison, because the stick and ball sports stuff doesn't apply. The field will generally be the same way, unless it's Soldier Field, in which case it's just crap. But other than that, it should be pretty damn similar and good. But NASCAR tracks are all different. It doesn't matter if you have a tri-oval 1.5 mile track. Las Vegas is a lot different than Kansas, just like Kansas is different than, say, Atlanta or Chicagoland, or you name it. And he did also expound on this, and this is the part that really kind of took off in the airwaves on social media, that the drivers and the industry that have talked to him about it have been adamant. No super speedways. And listen, I think until NASCAR proves otherwise, they are always going to leave the door open to have a finale at Daytona. NBC would love it for the marketing, and it would have that craziness that NASCAR has been working towards, basically on a linear path since the start of the Chase era in 2004. I don't want that to happen, and I'm glad that it's acknowledged, because that would delegitimize the championship in sports so much. And he does talk about, too, later on in this, that the door is open for road courses, street courses, you name it, but that the places they go to, doesn't matter if it's Miami or Phoenix or Kansas City, have to have a championship atmosphere in the area. They have to push NASCAR. They have to make it feel like it's a big deal. Because I can tell you this from experience. I went to the finale in 2019 at the Homestead Miami Speedway. And outside of basically being at the track, there was jack squat when it came to NASCAR. I stayed in Miami with a bunch of friends, and you wouldn't have known in our 25-minute drive to the track that anything NASCAR was going on until you saw the track and you saw all the festivities once you got there. And I get it. I'm with O'Donnell on that. That needs to change, and it needs to change fast.
I think it's both. We looked at some conversations, Christopher Bell, very opinionated on, kind of where we needed to be, how it affected him, how he's going to race in the future. Other drivers kind of like it, right? And fans, different opinions. So for us, we can make a quick decision and kind of question, have we really thought through all of these variables? Or we could really take the time and involve as many industry people as possible, get as many perspectives as possible, maybe a little slower. But I think that's the way to go. And that's ultimately where we fell on. So we have a whole committee that we're putting together that's going to evaluate this from everything, number of points, where you race, how the rounds. We may end up exactly where we are, but I don't think so. I think there'll be some tweaks that we look at that we can improve upon. I think what's ultimately going to come down to is, fans understand, right, that one race. And if I'm beating you, I won the championship, I get that. Others, should it be a 2 race? Should it be a 3 race? There's a lot of different variables to look at to make sure we're crowning the drivers who win and who are up on the wheel, and we can tell a story that they're deserving of being a NASCAR champion.
I think that last part is so important. The fact that they want to be able to tell the story of somebody being a deserving NASCAR champion. And again, it's not disrespect to Joey Logano because he won under the rules that were put there. It's not his fault. Don't blame the player, hate the game. But at the same time, if you look at Joey Logano's season, you really can wrap it up in about 4 races. That's it. 4 races or so is what you can tell the story. It's hard to say that the 15th best driver all year has a great story they put together over the course of the season to be a series champion. Now, what I really like from this is that they are putting a committee together. They talked about drivers, industry people, whoever else it might be. He talks about later fan input, which I think is very important, which I will say, hey, I am all open to constructive conversation with that. I disagree with the direction the sport's gone, and I would love to see it go in a better direction if they're able to do so. But what I will also say with all of this is that it reminds me of something in particular. In 2009, NASCAR had a host of problems. The recession was hitting hard. NASCAR TV and attendance numbers were crashing with the economy as well. And you had your best driver not really doing all that great. The racing generally for the time was not viewed very well either. So after the Coke 600 on Tuesday that week, NASCAR brought together basically everybody and had a giant town hall meeting, they called it at the time, to improve different aspects of the sport. And not all of the things that were discussed from the sounds of it were implemented right away, but the biggest thing is within a couple weeks, double file restarts were put in. And for the last 16 years now, that has been the norm in NASCAR. When NASCAR brings together so many people like this, it generally has a lot of impact. And when they take this long to have these kind of discussions, it generally makes big sweeping changes that the sport tends to stick with at times for a long time as well. Look at 2017 when they implemented the playoffs the way they are right now with stages and everything else added. And I think that there's this, my takeaway on everything. If this is actually taken seriously, if NASCAR realizes maybe they've went too far in some places, maybe there's areas that they can improve on that fans might not agree on right now, but they can hit that happy medium between the old school fan, like a lot of my friends, like a lot of my family, and in some aspects like myself, that would love to have NASCAR kind of go back a little bit to what worked, but also those newer fans, the ones that have come in recently that like the playoff side of it, the ones who generally like change and are very open to change. If they can hit that medium, walk that tightrope, It's not going to make everybody happy, but I do think that you might be able to maybe piss off less people that watch your sport. And in doing so, the openness can be appreciated. Because for right now, we can say, oh yeah, it's great that they said X, Y, and Z on here, and O'Donnell said A, B, and C, but it's before the season, it's far removed from Martinsville and Phoenix, and it's not in the moment itself that they're able to have this self-reflection. They need to admit, and this is for this show as well, they need to admit when NASCAR is wrong, open up about blatant screw-ups and things like that. This show and O'Donnell and Phelps and all of them being on there is never going to be a bashing NASCAR fest for those who want to see that. It's not constructive, and just in all honesty, nobody that's running a sport is going to go out there and say, yeah, man, we suck. No. But if they're able to be honest with us, this show has a lot of potential, and NASCAR's changes moving forward does as well. So with that, I'm going to leave it to you. Leave a like in this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content, and until next time, have a good one.